Hello. How's your MAGFest going? Yeah. How many of y'all have a Swadge? Full screen. Oh, no, I'm going to be changing between apps. Yeah. It's okay. How many of y'all have a Swadge? How many of y'all have listened to the music on the Swadge before? How many of y'all mute all the music in the Swadge? Nah, nobody will admit it. Okay. Thanks, Heckler. Cool. So we are not all of the composers behind the music in the Swadge. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a little bit of a sense, both like the technical aspects of how the Swadge music happens, and then we're also going to do a little bit of the creative of like how as composers and artists we go about making Swadge music. So as Emily said in the previous panel, by the way, who was here for the previous panel? Yeah, okay, cool. There's a lot of people who work on the Swadge, and I don't do code and I don't know how to see, but we love working with this team, and they always do really cool stuff. So let me give a quick overview of just a brief history of Swadge audio by the years. So it's come a really long way. I first got started personally with the Swadge in 2023 because I knew Adam, and we always room together, and he's always doing cool stuff in the Swadge world. And it was the square wavebird. Did anyone have the square wavebird? Yeah. All right, I'll full screen it. That's fine. Here. Cool. Better? Okay. All right. Cool. I don't have the notes, but that's fine. Okay. So the original square wavebird. So like the original Swadges didn't have any audio. The 2023 square wavebird had one buzzer, which was capable of sort of doing one square wave, which sounded a little bit like this. It's banana phone. The following year was the year that we had the gunship Swadge, and that was the year that I was like, oh, I really want to be involved and compose for the Swadge. And Adam was like, cool, you get 2 buzzers this year. You get 2 square waves. And it was actually really challenging, but really kind of fun to work within those limitations. Like, what can you do musically? Can you score an entire game just using 2 square waves? And, it's very rudimentary, but it's kind of... There's 2 of them. So you can have like a melody line and a harmony line, or like a bass line. So it's not like something you'd put on in your car, but it's like it's music and it's cool, and it was a lot of fun. And from a technical standpoint, it was very simple. We didn't have like an audio engineer. It was just these. You have a square waves to work on. It was actually pretty simple. You could just give Adam a MIDI of the 2 channels that you had. They would both come out as square waves, and as long as you played by the rules, where you didn't have more than one note happening on one channel at a time, or switching between notes too quickly, it would play more or less how you expected. Last year was the Chili Dog. Did anyone get the Chili Dog Swadge? So last year was the year that we really invested in sound as a sort of selling feature of the Swadge, and we brought on Dylan Witchard, who's not here. Who big shout out, because he's the reason that all of us are able to do what we do. And we had full MIDI support, so 24 voices, 16 channels, a dedicated percussion, pitch bend, ADSR, which stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. And we actually had a real speaker and a headphone jack, so you could make real music. Again, this is sort of what it sounded like. It's a big jump up, right? It's not like, again, it sounds like a chiptune. It's kind of on par with like a Game Boy or NES. But you can hear there's percussion happening, there's chords happening, there's multiple layers of instruments. But they all do sound like square waves, triangle waves, like chiptunes, right? And that's cool, and that fit. There were some growing pains, however, for this type of setup, namely because we had so many different MIDI instruments that we supported. We had Dylan went crazy and did full general MIDI support, which is 128 instruments. But what we didn't have were wavetables for all of those unique instruments. And so we could only afford, due to memory limitations, about a wave or like a cycle or two of a wave. So from a layman's perspective, it meant that most of these 128 instruments sounded basically identical. And if you were to take the MIDI and put it in some other program, it could sound really cool. But on the actual Swadge, it just sounded like bleeps and bloops, which is fine. Bleeps and bloops are great. But it was a little bit, it created some difficulties because we would work with some artists who had very elaborate ideas for what MIDI instruments they were going to use, and then they would just turn into bleeps and bloops when it actually played on the Swadge. And so there was some growing pains. What we did for this year, I don't know if any of you guys have listened to the music on the Pulse helmet this year, but we decided to go for essentially quality over quantity. So we do still technically support the 128 voices, and I think maybe did you guys use those banks at all?
Okay, low key, I kind of just did the MMX sound font.
Yeah, I mean,
I blended some of the non-gen MIDI sounds, like the raw waves, but like actual gen MIDI, no.
Yeah.
Like, we want things to sound good for y'all.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with the stuff that sounds best, and we put a lot of effort into the MMX sound font that you hear, so we're going to use it.
Yeah, so instead of 128 bleeps and bloops, we focused on 15 authentic SNES emulated wavetable sound fonts. We got them online. William Cage is just a guy who extracts all of these wavetables. It took a fair amount of effort to get those sound fonts playable on the Swadge, but we only had to worry about 15 instruments. And actually, as you know, to echo something in the previous panel, those limitations breed creativity. Yeah. And the ability to take those 15 instruments and make something that sounds like Mega Man is pretty cool. It was kind of worth it. And I am very proud of what this year's, what we were able to come up with those 15 instruments. Here's an example. You can put that in your car. That's like, put on headphones. There's like, that's pretty cool. And to be able to do that using the sounds purely of the Swadge. You can hear you've got the SNES percussion, which is way more robust. You've got clear kick drums, snare drums, cymbals. You've got strings, orc hits. We fought very hard to get orc hits in because they're very central to the Mega Man sound. Anyway, yeah. So this is just like the opening track of the game. You got a guitar. All right, I won't play the whole song, but yeah. So like. First off, props to Dylan. I think everyone, he's not here, but we should give props to Dylan to support those instruments at that level of fidelity on the Swadge is an incredible achievement. And it's not just the sample engineering. As I mentioned, last year there was a lot of pain points in working with the MIDI because we were dealing with 128 potential instruments. There was a whole lot of guesswork involved in translating. Oh, well, I said this was going to be like a vibraphone, but it kind of sounds like a bloop, and I want this, and so there was a lot of uncertainty when you were working with it. So because we narrowed it down to just these 15 instruments, we were able to streamline the workflow a lot. So Dylan also created, again, Dylan is the MVP of this, a conversion tool. And this is actually open source, and it's available on his website, where you can take any MIDI file created through any DAW or MIDI sequencer that you use, and it'll parse the tracks, tell you what you named the track, and then you just go ahead and you select the channel that you want it to play on, the sound bank, whether or not it's the general MIDI sound bank or the dedicated MMX sound bank, and the instrument, and you hit save, and then the MIDI file works. And for people who are non-technical like myself, this was a godsend, right? I don't have to dig into the intricacies of what the MIDI channel messages are. I'm just a composer. I like to make music in a DAW. I like to write things out in sheet music or whatever. I don't want to have to think about like the actual MIDI signals that are being sent. And this enabled that. The other thing, and again, I was able to create like a composer template, which I'll show you here, where I just loaded up all of the different sound fonts in my DAW, and then I could just play it. And if I wanted to make, and that was very conducive to just rapid prototyping. Like, I'm just gonna make a song. I can make one in 10 minutes. So that, and then we also sort of set for the people who are working on Megapulse EX, which I'll get to more, just like weekly composition goals. They're like, I want to make sure that we have like 3 songs a month or things like that. So there was a lot of things that we did this year to improve the efficiency of what we're doing. So one thing also that isn't on here, we also divided ourselves up so that we were each composer assigned to one game, as opposed to like last year where everyone was kind of just like, oh, I'll take that song, which was good for getting stuff done, but it meant for a lot more like corralling of musicians and like a slightly less cohesive musical experience in each game. I was like, this year I'm just going to work on Megapulse EX. I'm just going to do the soundtrack for that. It's going to be, one cohesive OST, and then Livingston, you had your, OSTs, and again, we're going to get into that, but like that efficiency where everyone could just sit and churn out stuff, what did that unlock? A butt ton of tunes. So this is a crazy, crazy productive year in terms of just raw creative output for the Swadge. There are 25 original songs just for Megapulse EX. That's up from 8 songs in Magtroid Pocket, and I think the entire, I don't know how many songs were on the last year's Swadge, but not 25.
Not this much.
Yeah, not this many.
Definitely not this much.
Between all of the different game modes, there's probably over 50 new songs. I haven't done an exact count. You can check in the jukebox.
I think Wavebird for 2023 had like 10 songs total.
Yeah.
And a decent number of those were sample tunes.
Right, exactly.
So
And they were on a single square wave. And these are like fully composed Mega Man quality SNES. So like the clear lesson here for any of you in the dev world is like quality over quantity, and smart investments in tooling and focus on just like, we're going to do this with this limited tool set and do as much as we can lead to explosions in creativity. And there's a great, so Tony Dickinson, who's performing this weekend with the Tiberian Sons, he has a great line, which is just reduce the amount of time between the tool and your brain. And like, as much as you can make it so you can just flow freely your musical thoughts and your creativity, so you're not fighting your tools, that is what unlocks a lot of the magic and a lot of the creativity. And that is sort of, that's it for the technical side of things. We'll do a Q&A, but like the technical takeaway is the more you can invest up front in removing those technological barriers that impede creativity, the more creativity just naturally blossoms. That's my little spiel. So thank you once again to Dylan, who's not here. This was just a big love fest for him. Okay, passing it over to Livingston.
All right, here we go. Hi, my name is Livingston. I didn't get the memo that we were going to do one game. Actually, okay, that's a lie. I did get the memo. It's just I waited for other people to take the games, and no one started taking them. And so I ended up writing the music for Alpha Pulse Dance Network, Atrium, Roborunner, the Swadge Sona, and Vector Tanks. Sorry, Adam, you will not get any Vector Tank love in this presentation.
Next slide?
Yeah. So this is my kind of like third year-ish working on the Swadge. Last year I do count as a legit year, but then the first time I was doing music, I wasn't really in contact. I was kind of like a good majority of our composers are, where it's like, hi, and then we're all over here sitting and being like, hi, you can come over here. So with Alpha Pulse Dance Network, spring rolled around And the game dev, James, reached out to me and he was like, I really liked what you did last year with my game Big Bug. Would you take this game that I'm currently making on? And so I said yes immediately. And then he said words that I didn't think would ever be possible with the Swadge. He said to me, he goes, Livingston, I want to do adaptive music. Raise hands if y'all know what adaptive music is, or if you don't, I guess raise your hand. Because okay, so we got more hands for don't, so I'll explain it. Adaptive music, just a quick synopsis, is music that changes with the game state. So any music that changes with the game state. I'm not quite sure how to
dynamic.
put it better. Dynamic music, like it changes with everything changing.
I think a good example that many of you may be familiar with is like a lot of platformer or adventure games. Like the music will sound different when you go underwater, right? You get in and everything becomes muted. So that's a really simple example of a dynamic and or adaptive music.
Another being like FPS games, now that I can think better. Like you're walking through, say you're playing, are we allowed to like name drop video games?
Yeah.
I mean, this is
MAGFest.
MAGFest.
It's fine.
So like if you're like playing Destiny or something, well, as you're walking through the different environments, the music never seems to really stop a whole lot. It just changes based on where you are. So we ended up doing a lot of dynamic volume automation with Alpha Pulse. The next thing I kind of want to talk about is writer's block, because that happens to so many people that I don't feel like we talk enough about. And what are some things you can do to compose through writer's block, at least from like a music standpoint. So the way that I ended up getting over my writer's block with this, because I got that whole, excitement of, oh, he wants to do adaptive music. What am I going to do? And that ended up being way too broad for me. I had too much excitement to the point where I was struggling to find out what I wanted the sound to be. If that makes any sense, you can be too excited by anything. And so I ended up creating a main motif for the entirety of Alpha Pulse. And thank you.
That's why I brought it.
That's like insanely smart. Okay. But yeah, by using that single motif, or leitmotif in some circles, I was able to expand it into the songs that I needed to make. One thing that I do that I know some people might not agree with is a thing called, well, you're all gamers, button mashing. So the same concept can be applied in music, oddly enough. If you sit at a keyboard and you're writing, sometimes just doing that will just give you ideas that you had no ability to do it beforehand. So that's two of my tips.
We didn't
guys have
rehearse
any?
that, by the way. That was.
Do y'all have any tips through like writing through writer's block?
Oh, I'll get there for sure.
Or do you want to save? You can save it for
Yeah,
lower
I'll save
slides,
it.
too.
Do you want to talk about Swadge Stone and
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So the next one I'm going to be talking about is hopefully you all are playing and creating your use. Is what?
Swadge Sonas,
Oh,
I think.
Swadge
Yeah.
Sonas. We didn't get okay.
You.
So hopefully you're creating your use, but while you're doing it, you also get music playing. Not only did I do the music, I did the music for all of those different games, and a problem arose because I was noticing that games were starting to sound like other games, which is not a great thing when you want to make a game stand out, especially musically. So when I first got the sound font that we all, had, I ended up doing what other people call it that too. I was going to say that I call, is making a sound palette. For each game, I use specific sounds and combinations of sounds so that each game would have its own individual sound, even though they all use the same sounds. That makes sense, maybe?
Yeah.
And I just want to go to the next thing where it's, not literally the next thing.
Oh, okay.
Composing using commonalities versus references. One thing that pretty much every game developer will do, or anytime you're making music for somebody, is they'll send you references of things that remind them of what they want you to do. And when you're getting those, it's very important not to copy what they did exactly. Well, it's very important not to copy, period, but it's very important not to copy exactly, because that's when you can get in trouble. So what do I mean by commonality versus references? So references, I'm talking about literally reading the notes that the composer gave you and figuring out exactly what they did. With the commonalities approach, try to listen through all of the different tracks and infer the things that the game developer wants from all of those tracks in combination with each other. And then after you have those commonalities, then you can add your own, spin on how you write music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I like that. I think one of the trickiest parts about writing music for something, when you're writing music for yourself, then cool, but when you are writing music for a game, you're given an assignment, usually. You're going to say, I want something that sounds like this. And the sort of difficulty in the art of making music for someone else or for a particular purpose is that you have to be able to intuit what it is, why did they want that particular reference, or why did they want it to sound a certain way, and then not give them exactly what they want, but give them what you think that the game needs or what you think will sound the best. And it's a really fun challenge because it's also the collaborative process. Like, you can end up surprising the person that you're working with and giving them something that they didn't even know they wanted. And that's the joy of the collaborative process is you work that stuff out together.
That's one of the most important parts that I keep having to remind myself, is that it is a collaborative process. The more you talk back and forth with whoever you're working with, the easier everything will be. Because no one's inferring anything if you're constantly talking about different things.
For sure. Okay. Moving right along. So Jay is off performing or rehearsing or something. I'm just going to real quickly talk about what he did. He is a MIDI guy. He did some looping tracks. He did them pretty quickly at the end of the process for Finding Faces. I'm just going to give you all a second to read that or scan the QR code. But yeah, I think the takeaway so last year we had Swadge Hero, which was a lot of fun, and it involved working with a whole bunch of external composers, including Jay, who were learning the platform. They weren't necessarily like experts in it. And there was a lot of like growing pains of like, they would send me a MIDI, I would play it on the Swadge, it would sound nothing like they intended. We'd have to go back and forth a whole bunch of times. And I think when you're working with people who aren't as like knee deep in the technical, being able to hear it and have it match in the actual hardware is really, really important. And I think, I'm just reading his opinion. Perfect balance for composing. And before I get into my stuff, Fawful, I know you don't have slides. But
Yeah, so I did zero work on this slide deck. Sorry. But I've been composing basically since music was introduced to the Swadge, and every year things have changed a little bit. But I've always been someone who fills in a couple of the gaps each year, because we always have some years where there's a mode that needs music and nobody stepped in. I know you stepped in for a lot of stuff, but you'll hear me on various additional tracks that were needed at some point, generally late in development. And yeah, I think there's something really strong to be said about how important it is to have a very close relationship between what you can prototype easily and what the final product is going to be. Because, as Joe just mentioned, if you're working with external composers who don't have access to like the tech stack that you're using, things are going to change. They're going to sound different. They're not going to match the original vision. And I think matching the original vision is something that's always been very important to me. And so, in early years, I put a decent amount of effort in my DAW, just like trying to EQ my output so that it would sound like it was playing through the Swadge buzzer. Because the Swadge buzzer sounds so different than like your headphones or the studio speaker that you have set up in your recording space. And as time has developed, of course, we have audio jacks now. It's much closer to the experience that we get behind the DAW. But we're still experimenting with things that are not always a one-to-one relationship. And as the tooling improves, we get ever closer. And I think it's easier now than ever to hop on and contribute to next year's Swadge.
Yeah, absolutely. Pro tip, if you are a musician and you want to make music for the Swadge, you can actually do it using the Swadge. If you input the Konami code on the Swadge, it'll open up a secrets menu. It is actually a MIDI player is one of the options. You can hook up your Swadge to your computer via just any USB cable and use a free program like Signal. If you want to do it, come up and talk to us, and we'll show you how to do it. Adam.
There's also a sequencer in the regular music menu.
Yes, there's also a sequencer if you actually want to input the notes using the Swadge itself. I'm a big fan of just having a keyboard and playing, but it is possible. You can actually just have the speaker and you can hear it exactly as it would, exactly as it's being encoded, which is very cool. And props to Dylan for making that ability to do MIDI playback through the emulator, which was also really big when we didn't have access to the prototype.
Can I do a side note on that? If you're doing that, make sure you're translating it using his website.
Oh yeah, Signal.
Yeah.
I hate Signal, but it is very important to use.
Wonderful, but I'm glad that we don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody who worked with Signal hates it. So not having that like tool that I showed you that Dylan put on his website was like such a godsend, so we didn't have to use Signal. Okay, all right. I'm going to use a couple more minutes to talk about Deep Dive, and then we'll do on Megapulse EX specifically. I recognize that this is like a really weird time to be doing this panel because the game was just effectively released today, and none of y'all have heard the songs. Have any of you played Megapulse EX yet? Okay, yeah. Well, Adam hasn't. Yeah. Well. So I'm going to talk about these songs, and maybe, hopefully, it gives you some appreciation of them when you encounter them in the game, or maybe for future people watching this panel on video, they can appreciate it. But First of all, what were the tools of the trade? So we talk a lot already in this panel about like how do we make music quickly. So this little doohickey was like the best investment. I got it like $30 used on Amazon, and it's like it fits in my backpack. It's super cheap, and it's got a little, it's got a pitch. I can do pitch bends on it. Again, just don't fight your tools. Like I could be in bed with my wife watching Netflix, and I just have my headphones and I was just making music. And I brought it on the plane with me. Just being able to just rapidly prototype something with something cheap that you don't have to like set up for, highly recommend. The thing on the right here is my iwi. I am a saxophone player by trade, and I play the iwi, which is an electronic wind instrument. It is has a MIDI out. I don't recommend using it for recording MIDI because it creates a ton of like every signal that you put is so it creates a lot of excess noise in MIDI data. But when I wanted to record solos for Megapulse EX and I really wanted it to sound natural and organic, it's really hard to sound natural and organic if you're keying in every note and sequencing it. So for me, doing a take or two on iwi and then polishing up the MIDI so that it could retain that organic off-the-grid sort of expression, very helpful. And I think it ultimately made it easier to make music that sounded live-ish.
You did remove the breath control channel, though.
I did.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
You
So all
gotta
of that
breathe
stuff
through
was
your Swadge.
Yeah, you could. I mean, okay, and then compositional philosophy. So Livingston mentioned this, and I love that he mentioned it because he was like, we don't want it to sound like existing stuff. That wasn't the goal with Megapulse EX. And that was part of what drew me to this project. As people who know me, and I've been involved in the music cover community. I'm playing it with Floating Continent at an hour and Ultra Combo. We're playing together, and yeah. So we do music covers, and it's actually really fun to mess with songs and themes that people know. And one of the real things that made me enthusiastic about this project was the idea that, we're making a Mega Man game with past mascots from MAGFest lore. So this is actually an opportunity to goof on a lot of actual established video game themes that everybody kind of knows in like a winking Easter eggy way. And it was really fun. And so again, you haven't heard the soundtrack yet, but one of the things I'm going to try and do in the next couple minutes is show some of the really sneaky and some extremely non-sneaky Easter eggs and references that I put into the soundtrack for people who love video game music. Because ultimately, this is a MAGFest product, and it's for people who will get the jokes, because there are a lot of musical jokes. The other really fun thing about Megapulse EX, and the reason that it's very personal to me, is like I also got to be involved in writing the script. And this is a game, and Mega Man as a character has always like resonated with me because his whole shtick is he's just a robot. He's pretty weak. He can't do that much. He can jump and he can shoot, but he picks up a whole lot of stuff along the way. And he picks up references and he picks up vocabulary. And it's very similar to like how a jazz musician will listen to a whole bunch of different records and steal shit. And I used my curse.
Our one curse.
I know, my one curse. And that's how he gets stronger. And like that to me is really fun because if we think about the musical journey of Megapulse EX as this is Pulse, he starts off being able to just jump and shoot, but he gets a whole lot of musical vocabulary. It just kind of all synergizes in a really fun way. And without spoiling the end, because nobody here has played to the end, that question of like musical originality and like imposter syndrome, plagiarism, goes from subtext to text in a really fun way that I will not spoil. But there's some very fun stuff in the story that is relevant. So I'm just going to tease it. So first, I'm going to play a bunch of tunes from it. To make this a little, like, who here in the crowd has a musical background? I'm just curious. Oh, okay, great. So, and maybe you'll be able to catch some of these references without me pointing them out. In fact, if you do, we have cool goodies to give. We have a whole bunch of like Swadge add-ons, and Jay Fry's got some stuff. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a couple of songs from the soundtrack and see if people can like grok some of the references. And if you can, cool. And if not, I'm going to just reveal them because I'm going to play them. But by the way, this QR code, if you want it, the whole soundtrack is available in WAV format completely for free. Everything from related to the Swadge is totally free. So you can get it. You can listen to it in like car quality stereo. Not stereo. It's mono. I made sure it was mono. Okay, so we'll listen to a couple of tunes from the soundtrack. Yeah, see, there it is. You can have it on your... let's start with Kinetic Donut. So does anyone know who Kinetic Donut is a reference to? Anyone up with their MAGFest lore? So, yeah, go for it. Yes, Kinetic Donut is King Donut, and King Donut is a reference to Kirby, yes. So see if you can spot, there's a couple of easy Kirby references and a couple of hard Kirby references in the Kinetic Donut stage theme. So raise your hand if you think you can spot one. There was the first one, that was the deep cut. Go for it, yeah, shout it out. Very close. I'm starting off with a hard one. It's gonna get really obvious in a second. The backing line is actually the sound test theme from Kirby's Dream Land 3. The bass line is actually not Kirby. I stole the bass line from Jet Set Radio's composer Hideki Naganuma from Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. If you downloaded the album, I've listed out all of the sort of references there. All right, now see. Yeah, it's this match. Yeah, it's Green Green. Okay, so you called it. Yeah. Okay. So that's Kinetic Donut. That was an easy one. I'm trying to see like what are some of the easier ones. So Grind Pangolin, who was Pango, aka Sonic. So his level theme is actually a ska version of the Pango theme from last year. So there's a little bit of like continuity, but the boss theme is full of Sonic references. Just shout it out if you hear it. We got some Live and Learn. This part's original, but you're gonna... Here it comes. He's got an attitude, Sonic. He's the fastest thing alive. Yeah. All right, so you called the what was the first intro? Yes, you nailed it. Okay, you get a CD. Here you go. Oh, it fell on the ground. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, this is actually one of my favorite ones, Smash Gorilla, because once you hear it, you'll never be able to unhear it. Smash Gorilla is, actually I won't tell you who it's based off of, but rather than go with the obvious choice of making it a swing, we made it a salsa. And tell me if you can grok who it is. What? Yeah, it's Donkey Kong, but which song? Give it a second. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, I can see everybody struggling with it. It's jungle swing, yeah, but as a salsa, exactly. Here, you come up and grab a thing. Oh, yeah, that's fine. We got Swadge add-ons. If you'd like a CD, you can have one. Oh, yeah, or get, what are these? These are
The mixtapes.
Oh, the mixtapes, yeah! Yeah,
Why are we
J-Fry
gonna
made
do-
amazing bootleg, shitty quality mixtapes.
That's
that
one more
have-
swear than we get.
It's the same swear, it doesn't count. So yeah, anyone want, we'll be handing these out. But yeah, if you want to hear just as God intended in terrible, recorded off of a microphone quality, I can't wait to listen to this. I'm so excited. Give it up for J-Fry, by the way. Oh yeah, put it on. Nice.
Does it have a aux? Because you could plug it in directly to the...
Oh yeah. Okay, we'll mess with that later.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll just do this. Okay, this is the deep cut. Also for Smash Gorilla. If anyone can place this one, I'm going to be really impressed. Coming to you. What? No. Anyone want to hazard a guess? Oh, someone else said that too, and that wasn't intentional, but I think that's probably... It is a Donkey Kong tune. Does anyone want to hazard a guess of what Donkey Kong tune it is? You want to hear it again? Oh, hold on. I'll play it in the beginning. No guess? Any guess? No, it's not. It's a deep cut. Donkey Kong Game Boy title screen. It's Donkey Kong 94's title screen. And all I had to do was change it.
$10. Don't forget to pizza.
Feel good time. Check it out. So all I did was change it from a major to minor and added a salsa beat. So the whole, if you check out if you download the album, all of these are laid out, and I put links to all of the things because I just had so much fun doing this. This was it was an opportunity to pay homage to all of these game soundtracks, including some really rare ones. Yeah, there's the QR code if you want it again. I'm gonna do one or two more, and then we're gonna do. Oh, actually, we got more time than I thought. We can do some Q&A, but. Oh, all right. Oh, okay. I'm very proud of how sneaky this one is. This is again Kinetic Donuts boss theme. If anyone can place this one, you're gonna groan when you find out what it is. But here, everyone. This part's the easy part. Yeah. Everybody knows this part. Yeah. What part? Which one? Sorry? Gourmet race. Yes, you got it. Come up and grab a cassette. But does anybody, if you can get the either the other two Kirby references, I will be really impressed. Anyone want to hazard a guess of the? So the intro is almost verbatim from the Kirby's Block Ball boss. Here you go. Check it out, which is one of my all-time favorite games. And then the melody, which I'm really glad no one got because I thought I was being really obvious. So, hold on, so. It's the classic. It's the King Dedede. It's the Kirby boss theme, just rhythmized to be sneaky. So the whole soundtrack is full of goofy crap like that. Crap doesn't count. And it was super fun. I'm gonna do one more, and then I'll do Q&A. I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing it. This is fun. Let's do. How about we'll do Flare Griffin's stage. This was the most blatant, maybe. I think this was the first tune that we did when it was like, okay, can we make something that sounds like Mega Man X, which it does, so you don't get points for guessing that. But if you can get the other references, then I'll be impressed. Doom was actually not intentional. Either of them, I'll give you a mistake. You've heard one theme already. What? Good guess. And then here comes the second one, which is a deep cut, but it's a very... Any takers? The Dwelling of Duels people might know. Okay, so any guesses? Anyone? That's worth a scene. Oh yeah, well I got a couple left. Yes, Storm Eagle, absolutely. That was you know. Doom is definitely there. Interestingly, so Flare Griffin is our Star Fox inspired boss, and so the so it's actually a like changed version of the Star Fox 64 credits theme, which is. That one's hard, I get it. But then the bridge is super blatant if you've played Pictionary for the NES, written by Tom Follin, and when you hear it, you'll see how blatantly I ripped it off. Pictionary is one of those things that the Dwelling of Duels community loves because it goes way harder than any game about Pictionary should ever. It was just Pictionary. Pictionary, yeah. So
When you have everything you need to
yeah,
start
Planet
strong.
Fitness. So I'll hold on, where's the part where I... Oh, yeah. Oh, shoot. It goes so hard. It rocks so much. Tim Follin is like a legendary video game composer because he just went so above and beyond what any game required of him to make these just super slamming soundtracks, and I wanted to pay him tribute. Anyway, that's all I've got time for. I want to save plenty of time for Q&A, but listen to the soundtrack. If you hear something and you think that it might be a reference, it probably is because I was just lousy. Anytime I was having writer's block, I would just go be like Mega Man and steal from something I loved and try and recontextualize it. And I could because it's the Swadge. And it's fun. And
I still do.
Yeah. Stealing is fun. Recontextualizing.
Yeah, it's not stealing.
Okay, yes. So what we did is we used the sound fonts that are available freely online. You can download them, and then you can play them using. Most DAWs have like playback functionality, so you can see. Is it still sharing?
Yes.
Yep.
So you can see the samples. So like for the saw wave, it's basically just a very simple waveform that's being looped. And you can see it's just looping it. Really, the complexity comes from just like the beginning of the sound and where it loops. But you can set this kind of stuff up, and if you want, like we can make this session available. But basically, once you have it set up, and it takes like 20, 30 minutes to set up a session like this, all you have to do is just toggle between them. Now you have strings, if you want to do the synth bass, or the slap bass if you want to do the Seinfeld theme. Sorry? Correct, yeah, the keyboard is just a MIDI controller. So it's just sending MIDI information. Yeah.
For the sake of the recording, because the recording cannot hear the audience, the question was whether the keyboard is responsible for actually like playing the sounds that we use when composing, or if we have it set up in our DAW. And as Joe said, we have it set up in our DAW.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for the question.
Does this mic work?
Yep.
Great.
Go for it.
Whoever's got a question can speak into this mic. You're close.
Which classic Mega Man games did you sample from or take particular fondness from?
So I tried to keep it pretty Mega Man X because that's sort of what people remember. And so like if one memory I have playing the original Mega Man X is if you got to the last Sigma stage, there's this corridor you have to climb up to get to the last boss, and then the last boss would wipe all of your E-tanks, and you had to spend a lot of time in that corridor just like grinding up. And it had this hold on, I'll put it in. It had this sort of yeah, and it just that repeated chromatic pattern, and it was just 4 measures looping for like 20 minutes, and it was really annoying. So of course I had to use that. So like the without spoiling who the last boss is so that same chromatic thing, that motif shows up a bunch. All of the bosses, this is like a little, I'm a fan of this song. But all of the bosses have the vibraphone doing a little motif in octaves, which is another reference to like, I don't know, just Mega Man stuff. The other thing is when you get an item, this is a shout out to all the shizzies because they should know this song. So it is a major version of Item Get from Mega Man 3. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you pick a mistake. Here, really? All right. Good catch.
Nice.
Yeah. So those are the 2 ones. Did you guys reference Mega Man X explicitly?
Not explicitly,
I
no.
don't want to give away what
I'm a hack. I'll give it away.
a lot of my Easter eggs are all like, I want you to either find it or don't find it. If you think if you think I did it, then amazing. If you didn't, then also amazing. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, more questions. Yes.
Yeah. As you were working, did you like periodically convene and like compare or like share stuff and comment, or were you all just kind of working with the developers?
I feel like we're mostly siloed with the developers, but we're all pushing stuff to the same Git repository, and we can check in on the things that other people have added.
I feel like
we all filled out the jukebox at some points along our development, so we can always like
That
just
was me.
poke in and like open up that mode and see like, hey, what has Joe done?
Yeah, I would periodically like every time I finished a song, I would share it on our just shared Slack because I just wanted the feedback and I wanted to share and like, hey, see if you can guess what I snuck in. And
if you were paying attention to the jukebox, I didn't really update that until like the last week because I didn't want to do that a million times.
fair enough. Yeah, mostly we were talking to our developers. Like I talked very, very closely with JVEG and James at the end. Like we would go back and forth and we would play the builds. I was very fortunate to be so closely involved in the actual game development too, and like the script. And I was like, oh, you know what? This cutscene needs its own music. And normally that would be a kind of annoying thing to ask a composer to go make some more music. But I played the cutscene and I wanted music, so I'm like, I'm gonna go make it. And then it was just a matter of dropping it in. And so I created a special cutscene music for when you beat the last boss, where it sounds like he's blowing up. And again, the general like ethos at MAGFest is if you build something cool, they'll find a way to work it in. And have this climactic moment and this like nice sort of rousing thing. Anyway, you play it.
Yeah, but we need it for the recording.
Two-parter. Tell me not to if you need to.
No, it's okay.
Sound effects. Those came from the developers, or y'all, or yes?
Kind of yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had some sound effects we didn't use, but
Yeah, and I feel like it was equal part developer and composers doing a lot of the sound effects.
Right
Yeah,
on.
because I feel like a decent chunk of the sound effects were just like 2 or 3 notes.
Yeah.
Right?
like
and it's just like, as long as there's some tangible feedback that your input has been recognized by the console, for a lot of the games it didn't matter if it was, like specifically in tune with whatever track was playing at that time.
Sure.
So, developers would add in, their own temporary sound effects, and of course there's nothing more permanent than a temporary solution.
yeah, that's right. I actually do have to shout out James because he really wanted me to cover this, and I'm really glad that you raised it. So one thing that he programmed that he put at the last minute that he's very proud of, that is very cool, is if you play Megapulse EX during the cutscenes, if you press the D-pad instead of pressing A, you will actually have the character sound effect. You can make them sing along to the music. And it is extremely interesting and complicated, and each character has their own voice. And
That's
the
amazing.
music, and they what they sing will actually fit in with the chord because he's a crazy mad genius. And it even goes so far as there is one character who, no story spoilers, is not who they say they are, and when their true identity is revealed, their voice also changes. It goes that deep. It's super cool. You should all check it out. So props to James for putting that. I know we're a little bit over time, but nobody's cutting us off, so any other questions?
Any other questions? Nope. Portal 3 is, though.
Oh, yeah, if you want to ask another question, that's... No, go for it. Thank you for everyone for coming, for those who are leaving. Thank you.
Also, for those who are here, we also...
Yeah, and grab
We have
freebies too. Yeah,
things.
but yeah, if you have questions, go for it.
Yeah, just real quick. Going back to the buzzer versus the headphone jack. Did you, since this Swadge has the headphone jack, did you like sort of compose like full frequency, or did you try to make your music like sound good on the speaker also?
Well, I guess I can't speak for everyone,
Yeah.
but as someone who like did the transition from buzzer to non-buzzer, I definitely held on to some of that habit of like, hey, we're working with a really small speaker. It doesn't have the bass frequencies that you're used to. Want to make sure that it does sound good there. But that doesn't mean that we can't use the fuller frequency range to add on to that, right? Because we have the polyphony to do it. We're not limited in terms of notes that we can play, at least not in a realistic sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this year I deliberately composed with the OST in mind first, because I was like, I want to make sure it sounds good on the Swadge, but we didn't really know when we were starting off if we were going to be able to actually get it sounding with the fidelity we would. So I was like, all right, at the very least, I'll just compose what I think sounds good. If at the very least I'll be able to put out an OST of what it should have sounded like, and I'm actually quite surprised and impressed that it sounds as close to what the DAW intended on the actual hardware. By the way, this one's for all the jazz heads. I really wanted to. It's literally just giant steps. I took my Iwi and I soloed at like half tempo and then I spit it up. And I won't tell you who it's for, but it's for a boss who is Trash Man. So that tells you all that you need. So he's just spitting jazz trash. All right, cool. Adam's telling me to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much.
I wish we had a camera for that.
Yeah.
That is like.
And come see Floating Continent at the Belvedere like now. I'm gonna run over there.